Hilarious economic data coming out of Canada today. Spoiler alert, it's not looking good, but Mark Carney's here to save the day with his huge announcements that he's making. We'll get into those. There's also some big announcements coming from some premiers with some nation-building projects, and the economic numbers that are around jobs and the finances that hit you directly in your pocketbook have come out. We are going to dig into those because I think there's a solution that could be better for pretty much every single Canadian. But we are also seeing the sovereign debt crisis continue to get worse in Canada, and the embarrassing behavior from the ministers in the House recently, I think it's kind of indicative of where things are headed when it comes to the debt perspective. But we are importing some very impressive entrepreneurs that I want to talk about as well, and Mark Carney was hit with some hard questions from the press that are also indicative of what we can expect from Mark Carney moving forward. So let's get into it.
It's a day that has literally been decades in the making. Minister LeBlanc has just tabled our government's One Canadian Economy legislation, a bill with two equally important components designed to create one Canadian economy out of 13. A bill that is laser focused on building a stronger, more competitive, and a more resilient Canadian economy that works for all Canadians. A bill that meets this hinge moment with the urgency and determination it requires.
Yes, this government known for its urgency and determination. Them about to take their summer break anyways.
The first component of the bill eliminates federal barriers to internal trade and labor mobility. It's our contribution to a broader effort with all the provinces and territories to eliminate the barriers that have held our country back for far too long. Barriers that cost Canadians as much as $200 billion every year. With the One Canadian Economy Bill, we are aligning federal rules and regulations with those from the provinces and territories, helping to create one market, not 13.
Yeah, that's an interesting statement there. One market, not 13. Let's see if we can get everybody on board, because we do have some experts weighing in on what Mark Carney said. Let's see what they have to say about this.
Standing by, Stuart is an international trade policy researcher with the Canadian Centre for Policy Alternatives. Stuart, thanks for taking time for CTV on this Friday.
Hi, Todd.
The key takeaways here from what Carney had to say today. Your read.
Well, I think what he's saying, I've flipped through the bill. It's not super long. I think there's a little bit of a mismatch, right, between kind of the hype that we saw from the Prime Minister this morning and what the bill actually achieves. And I don't think that's anything to do with what they hope to achieve in the sense of making goods and services and investment move more freely across borders. I think it has to do with the fact that there's very little, in fact, that the federal government does, right, that actually gets in the way of interprovincial trade. So there was very little that they could announce in this legislation in respect of removing those barriers. There's some stuff around, acknowledgement of, federally regulated sectors, they will acknowledge credentials that have been given out at the provincial level. I'm not sure how many professions that will affect. I don't think it.
Not very many. Look, I love the idea of breaking down provincial trade barriers. The number of the $200 billion that it's been costing Canada has been thrown around for a while, and I've seen some other people who I watch verify that those could be real numbers. And the fact is, Canada is so divided because we have provinces like Quebec and BC who just don't want to get on the same page. And when Mark Carney was asked, hey, you're putting this bill forward. You want the one economy. You want everybody working together. So if a province says that they're going to get in the way of a nation-building project, will you supersede them and say, sorry, we're building it anyways? He said, no, we're going to get the provinces on board. We need the Indigenous to sign off. We need total, complete consensus from everybody. This bill means nothing. I like the idea, but this is a continued sign of what the Liberals love to do. They love to make promises and never deliver. And the reason is you can get lost in policy thinking they're making all these changes and that things are getting approved that are going to help you as Canadians. But right now, the way that this is structured is not going to help anyone. And Pierre knows that more than anybody because look at his statements on what he has to say after this came out.
You said you would support legislation that improves the status quo. Does this meet the bar, and will you support it?
So we'll let you know on Wednesday. We have our caucus meeting Wednesday.
It's baby steps when we needed a giant leap. Like I said in my remarks, we would vote in favor of accelerating even one project, even though we think there are literally thousands of projects that need to be accelerated. So our test is not whether or not legislation is perfect, but whether it is better than the way things are. And that's what we will be looking at as we study this newly introduced bill over the next few days.
So the Conservatives are doing an okay job at sort of slow playing things, trying to be positive, saying, look, we're going to support these projects if they are nation building and if they are helpful. And the Liberals keep going, well, we're going to do everything. All right, can you name me one thing you're going to do? No, I don't think you understand. We're going to do everything. Awesome. I want you to do everything. Can you name me one thing of the everything? Don't you understand, man? Well, hey, what about this pipeline? No, the Indigenous, also BC's not on board, so we can't do that one, but we are going to do everything. Alrighty then. So you're not going to do any of the major nation building projects that we need approved right now. Speaking of spending, Doug Ford made an announcement here about a real important project that I think we should get into.
We're going to get people moving. We're building that tunnel. And at a future date, we'll even put transit right down the middle of the 401.
No.
But it's the 401's. I don't even have to sell this. 401's a nightmare. You can't even get around this city. And then outside the city, when you start going west and then you start going east, it's jammed everywhere. So it's jammed because the visionaries that built the highway should have thought of this 40, 50 years ago. But we're visionaries. We're getting it done, and we're going to build that tunnel as sure as I'm talking to you today.
We're visionaries. We're going to build that tunnel. You know what? It's going to be underground, and we're going to put a railroad underground. We're going to call it the Underground Railroad. No, Doug, you've gone too far. It's hilarious to watch this because, the visionaries should have known that we would be importing 1 billion Indians per year, almost exclusively to the GTA, making the 401 one of the busiest highways in the world. How did the visionaries from 50 years ago not know that we would have 1 billion Indians by now? That's insane. But luckily, Doug, the liberal slug, was here to be a visionary. Dumb project, dumb idea, because why would we be building underground railroads when we could just cut immigration? We keep widening the 401. There's no reason for us to have this many people on the road at the rate that we've had them. I don't think that spending on infrastructure is bad when we could just be cutting immigration. And that is important because we're getting into these details here. Like, Canada's debt servicing costs just tripled from 3.14 pi to 1111, make a wish, I guess, of a total federal spending. A warning sign that goes far beyond budget math. Let's break down why this matters and how it fits into the next economic phase. And this is big when you start hearing things like this surge means 1 in every 9 federal dollars now goes just to pay interest. So 1 out of $9 is just interest. That's written off that we get nothing from. And every time these liberals want to increase this spending, or Doug Ford, who's, I guess, evidently a liberal too, on the Underground Railroad, the money is not going to healthcare. It's not going to innovation. It's being transferred to creditors. This is a textbook sign of fiscal strain. And this is important to talk about now because as we're getting into the jobs data, we are going to see that this is going to get worse moving forward, because what happens when the economy slows down? The government spends. But luckily, we have the economists here are going to tell us. And this announcement here is what affects you as Canadians. This affects your standard of living, okay? So this is what we need to talk about. Have you liked the video yet? Helps get these videos in front of more people, helps the channel grow. Don't forget to sign up for Wealthsimple. The link is down below. You get $25. I get $25. You're supporting the channel, taking on the big banks, and you're getting paid. Let's get back to it.
Canada unexpectedly added 8,800 jobs in the month of May, but the rate of unemployment hit 7.0%. That's the highest since the pandemic. And if you exclude the pandemic period, it's the highest since the fall of 2016. Let's get some perspective.
Wow, so more jobs were created, but unemployment went up. I wonder why that is.
From Beata Karanci, chief economist at Toronto Dominion Bank. Beata, thanks a lot for joining us. How strong is this evidence of a continuing slowdown in the Canadian economy?
This is one of these reports that it could have been worse. It's not an inspiring jobs report, but at this stage in the game, we will take any gains we can possibly get. And one of the positive aspects of this report was, although there was about just over 8,000 jobs created in Canada, they were mostly and exclusively actually in the private sector and in full-time. And those two.
So very important mindset here from this economist who is saying we will take any job gains we can get. Okay. Not we want quality jobs, not we want jobs that are helping with productivity of Canada. We will take any job gains we can get. And that is important for what we're going to discuss.
Sides have been suffering in the prior 2 months. The private sector jobs had declined by 75,000 positions in 2 months. We gained back 60,000, so still in a net negative position. But it certainly kept us from thinking that, the economy is going off the cliff at this stage. There's a little bit of positive news in there.
Yeah, a little bit, sure.
How fast is the labor force growing? We have seen before, of course, the rate of unemployment rise at the same time that jobs are added to the economy. The number of additions was small this time around, but we've seen that trend before. What explains it is that the labor force is getting larger. The number of people in Canada who are working or who want to find work. What are we seeing in terms of labor force growth recently?
It's definitely outstripping what you're seeing on the job front. However, the labor force growth is not what we were experiencing a year ago or 2 years ago, where you would see 70, 80,000 people enter the job market every single month. We're now.
So I need to dissect this for a second because we're watching the information washing right now. The labor force participation that they're talking about is mass immigration. They're not talking about people who are graduating university and just entering the workforce, or people who have not been employed and are now job hunting again. They are talking about mass immigration. And when they break down these private sector jobs, what they mean is retail and food service jobs, low wage, low skill jobs. Yes, they're full time, but they're supposed to be catching up with the demand, but they're not. And she's justifying insane. Well, we used to get 70 or 80,000 people entering the workforce. Now we're only getting 30,000. That's a lot when we don't have anywhere near the level of productive job creation. And here's what's happened in Canada is we've now immigrated so many people that Tim Hortons, Burger King, McDonald's, whatever other retail store, I don't care, has gotten so much domestic demand from the increase in population that they go, oh, well, we've seen retail and food services demand. That means we need to grow and hire more people. So they go, well, we need to grow. We got to bring in more immigrants to service the immigrants. And this is why I wanted to make the point of her saying we'll take any job gains we can get, because as an economist, for some reason, they don't break down the details and go, hey, actually, if we just keep bringing in immigrants and we're only servicing jobs for the immigrants, it's like this is not productive for Canada at all. And I'm just talking sheer numbers. This keeps wages low. It hurts productivity. Obviously, you're talking about all of the social services that are being used. And because of the amount of people who are coming in and not getting jobs, a lot of them are ending up with government money, which is inflationary and going to stack onto the sovereign debt, the government debt that we continue to see. But the point is, when you've shifted the Overton window so far that, oh, these insane numbers were worse, we're working better. Everything that's been created in this report was not productive. It was fake. It was a fugazi. Doesn't exist, okay? So we have to hold these economists and these pundits and all of these people accountable when they don't provide Canadians the real economic information. Because let's hear what they have to say about youth unemployment, which we'll get into how bad that is.
Still sitting at around 20 to 30 every month or less. So it looks far more reasonable. We are, at 8,000 jobs. You are going to see the unemployment rate rise because it's just never going to be enough to absorb just the natural influx of the labor force. So the bigger issue is when you look at the trend on the unemployment rate, it's been steadily rising throughout the year, even relative to the Bank of Canada's estimate of where they would like to see the unemployment rate, where it's like neither, inflationary or disinflationary. Their range is between 5.5% and 6.5%, and we're sitting at 7%. So it's telling you there's slack building. You do
Yeah, Toronto is like close to 10%. Ontario itself is close to 9%. That 7% is countrywide. There's areas, again, which are getting hit harder with immigration, which have way worse numbers.
You see it in areas in the job market. For example, when you look at wages, they were quite modest in growth, and hours were flat. So we are seeing signs that, you know, the employer is not absorbing as much as we would like. So it's not a strong report by any means. It's like
now the information comes out. It's not a strong report by any means.
At the beginning, it just could have been worse. I think myself and many of my peers on the street were braced for a negative print for May. So that's where there's a little bit of relief coming through.
Luckily, the large multinational franchises and corporations were able to hire enough Indians to get us 8,000 positive jobs.
Okay, it's a very difficult job market for young people, students looking for summer work. The age cohort between 15 and 24, the rate of unemployment there was just over 20%. Is that what you would expect with the headline unemployment number rising to 7.0%?
The unemployment number for ages 15 to 24. At 24, you've graduated university and are a working aged adult, is 20.1%. The insane thing about that number is it's 22% for males specifically. It's even a little bit higher than on the female side. And what does that mean? I was like, this can't be good. So I started to look up historical trends for when you have youth unemployment, and it is not good. 22%, that's almost 1 in 4 males who is 15 to 24 cannot get a job right now, and we continue to bring in working-aged males from other countries who are taking all of these jobs that historically would have been worked from a lot of people in that age category. What does that mean? We could end up with basically a generational workforce who is so unused to having a job. They are not used, they don't have experience, and it is a sign of a breakdown in social cohesion. I can't imagine having 1 in 4 15 to 24-year-olds unemployed being a good thing. I don't know about you, but I was 15 to 24 at one point, and if you gave me all of that time to be unemployed, I think some people would be more mad at me than they currently are. But anyways, they continue to run coverage, especially around the trade deficit problem.
When it comes to comparing how much merchandise was brought into Canada versus exported out last month, the difference has never been so stark, with that trade deficit growing to just over $7 billion in April, compared to just over $2 billion in March, reflecting in large part a plunge in overall exports being sent to the U.S., which tumbled nearly 16% month over month.
We're looking right at the heart of the storm of tariffs, and they showed a huge drop in our exports.
The fallout from the slew of tariffs imposed by the U.S. president on cars, steel, aluminum, and other items was just partly to blame for the drop in exports. So too was the flood of goods that poured into the U.S. ahead of the tariffs, which built up inventories. Exports of autos to the U.S. falling 23% in April, while exports of consumer goods fell 15%.
So again, these numbers are pretty insane when you think about how large. So the U.S. on every single line item when it comes to Canada's exports is our number one trading partner. So when all of these elbows up people want to take them on, this is what we're going to see.
Automatic machine.
Toronto-based Ultraform Manufacturing makes components for auto parts and has seen such a drop in demand, its employees have had to switch to work sharing, for now at least avoiding layoffs.
So we definitely had a drop of almost 35% in our business.
The value of energy exports also dropped, but that was due to lower oil prices, while overall exports fell to their lowest level in 2 years. And some expect things to continue to deteriorate, with pressure mounting to reach a trade deal and companies looking for certainty.
Hopefully we can get back to an agreement that is respected by both countries.
Yeah, I think Canada's going to come to the table pretty late, and we're going to end up in a bit of a pickle, to say the least. But luckily, our immigration minister is on top of it. Look at her reaction.
Promised to cap foreign study permits, which also allow people to work in Canada. But new data shows that the Liberals blew their cap out of the water by handing out a whopping 500,000 foreign study permits last year, roughly the same population as all of Halifax. Why did the Liberals bring 500,000 foreign students to Canada during a massive housing shortage and while youth in Canada can't find jobs?
The Honourable Minister of Immigration, Refugees and Citizenship.
Mr. Speaker, thank you very much for that question. Those figures are inaccurate. It's misinformation. This new government is hard at work to improve our immigration system, and the introduction of Bill C-2 Tuesday was an example of that. We are taking significant steps to preserve the integrity of our system while also upholding our humanitarian commitments, because we understand a well-managed immigration system is essential to a safer, stronger Canada.
Oh, nice job. The Honourable Member for Calgary-Nose Hill.
So I got those numbers from the minister's website. I went on the website and I read them. So in the middle of a housing crisis, she brought 500,000 people to Canada.
I can't think of a better gotcha moment than, hey, that's misinformation. Those numbers are made up. You're lying. They're your numbers. You told us that. Like, and this is the level of leadership we have, making sure that the immigration's monitored, making sure that everything, the T's are crossed, the I's are dotted, and that lady is in charge. Once again, we don't have a housing shortage. We don't have a staff shortage in the hospitals. We don't have a stressed healthcare system. We do not have an unemployment problem. We do not have any of these things. We have a mass immigration problem because every single one of those industries and problems could be alleviated and fixed if we were to lower immigration. So the one thing that you could counter argument is say, well, the economy, we've been using immigrants for our economy, which is true. And we all do need to be prepared. Unless Canadians start doing some serious sex and having some babies, there will be major pullbacks in the economy because we've got addicted to immigration. But we're seeing in real time how well these ministers know their industries, because look at the Minister of Public Safety's answer to some relatively basic questions.
What are the three classifications or what are the classifications of firearms?
The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, what I can tell the member is that Bill 21 addresses a number of concerns that we've heard from all Canadians, but it is to ensure that...
I wonder if he's getting past a note right now with them. Without looking at that note, what are the classifications for firearms in Canada? He's a public...
The Honourable Minister.
Restricted, non-restricted, and prohibited, Mr. Speaker.
Oh my goodness. Mr. Speaker, this is the Public Safety Minister. Somebody passed him a note with those classifications. Does the Public Safety Minister not know the classifications of firearms at the Committee of the Whole? Yes or no?
Minister.
It's so funny. And again, like, these people just have no shame, so they don't care. He literally looks down when he answers the question, checking the paper. That's like pure comedic delivery there. Hey, why don't you answer the question without checking the note? And he's like, stressed. He's like, look at it, checks the note. Oh, that's like, it's comedy, man. It's pure comedy. But the good news is we are importing some serious, hard-hitting, impressive entrepreneurs. Let's go over this guy's, entrepreneurial mindset and how he plans on helping build Canada.
This is how you can access hundreds of government grants in Canada if you are a business owner or looking to buy a business. Let me show you how this works. So once you're on this business benefits finder, you click on these filters. You can select grants and funding. For amounts, of course, click all amounts. You scroll down, go over these filters, and then you select your industry. In my case, I will be selecting finance. But one thing to keep in mind is select only.
What's the over-under on this guy being a Indian real estate agent?
Only programs accepting clients, and you will see 192 results. We'll let it load up and you can go over all of these grants and funding that has opened up. You click on more, let's say for example this one. It will also tell you what you are eligible for and how you can apply for this grant as.
So everything we just watched in that video is inherently inflationary, and it's going to stack on to the government debt. And we have international people now teaching other international people how to get free money from the government. Hell yeah, baby. That's what we're looking for. Anyways, I might have to give Quebec a small shout out for this, although the details were important. We'll get into this as well.
Since the Legault government took power in 2018, it has promised to cut the number of permanent immigrants welcomed by the province. Now, the immigration minister is outlining his plan through 2029, a plan the CEQ will have to defend next year on the campaign trail.
We don't shut the gate. This is not true. We are lowering our goals, our scenarios, and we are consulting all Quebecers before that we decide what we'll do.
Jean-François Roberge is laying out 3 scenarios, all much lower than current numbers.
Again, Overton window, everything shifted. The numbers have gotten so insane. Lower the number.
25,000 permanent immigrants per year, 35,000 or 45,000. He also wants to reduce the number of temporary foreign workers in Montreal and Laval. He's also
Poor Filipino guy just catching some strays.
repeating his demands to Ottawa, calling on the Carney government to cut the number of temporary immigrants under its control in half by 2029. Repeating Quebec just can't support them anymore.
Housing matters, and our schools and our health system, our capacity to pay for services too.
Those temporary immigrants, you want Ottawa to move them outside of Quebec.
The word temporary says it all. They are not permanent.
The immigration minister says, like, we're spending $500 million on asylum seekers alone in Quebec. Again, inflationary spending, because that's not productive, and that's the minimum that they spend. I don't understand how the temporary foreign worker moved from being temporary. But Mark Carney was asked a question by the press today, and I actually think his answer was really important.
Do you believe Mr. Modi was involved in Party Singh Nijar?
Well, first off, there is a legal process that is literally underway and quite advanced in Canada, and it's never appropriate to make comments in any respect with respect to those legal processes.
But with respect, if you cannot say no, why invite him here?
I gave, with respect, I gave you an answer that is appropriate to someone in my position about an ongoing legal process including which federal authorities are directly involved.
You can always see how he talks to the press. And the thing is, there's been allegations for a while that in the boardroom, he's been like a jerk and hard to work with. I always have been hesitant because it's hearsay. You don't know who likes him. I want to see facts. I want to see proof. But we see how annoyed he gets with the press, you know, cutting her off, pointing.
Interfere.
What is your message then to Canadians who are a bit disturbed or wondering why Mr. Modi is being invited to Canada when there is this legal process that has not cleared him and his governments of involvement in the death of a Canadian on Canadian soil?
My message is that we're a country of the rule of law. The rule of law is proceeding as it should in Canada, and I am not going to disrupt that process.
Look, her question is about stopping Indians at the border. I think we all know my stance on that. However, Mark Carney's answer was factually correct. Canada has an innocent until proven guilty legal process. So the fact is, yes, could he have been involved in these things? Perhaps. We don't know. Is it even likely? Maybe. But until it's been proven, you can't deny him the access to these things because that is the way the process works. Maybe I'm reading too much into the situation, but we are seeing too many cases stack up of him acting like that in public. So I'm starting to think maybe something's going on behind closed doors. But if you made it this far in the video, you absolutely rock. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. It helps get these videos in front of more people. We are trying to grow the channel. For some reason, I'm not getting the exposure that I would like. I don't know why, but have a great rest of your day.